Welcome everyone to the Veterinary Business Podcast, your ultimate resource for developing a successful veterinary practice and career. I'm Ryan Davies, Digital Marketing Advisor with Equo Marketing and one of the co-hosts of the Veterinary Business Podcast. On this podcast, we bring you insights and expertise from industry-leading doctors, experts, and thought leaders, covering a wide range of topics, including practice management, marketing strategies, leadership and development, HR, AI, law, and so much more. Whether you're a practicing veterinarian, practice owner, practice manager, or a student studying to be a veterinarian, this podcast is tailored to help you navigate the unique challenges and opportunities of the business of veterinary medicine. Every listener to this podcast is welcome to visit www.veterinarybusinessinstitute.com for additional resources and tools to support your growth. And remember, you can subscribe to our podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts: iTunes, YouTube Music, Spotify, and all the other popular podcast platforms. Today, I am honored and so happy to welcome back Kristina Bergsten for a second time with us. Kristina, thank you so much. You didn't get enough of me the first time, hey, that you wanted to come back and share even more wisdom with our audience. I really appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me again. I missed you. What can I say?
Right? Yeah. I said we were going to make this a regular thing, so I'm super excited that that's the case now. So for those who maybe didn't get our first episode, definitely go back and listen to it because it was a wonderful episode that we really navigated through the areas of like legal implications and malpractice, things like that. But Kristina is an esteemed attorney and the founder of the Animal Law Firm. And beyond her impressive legal practice, she's a dedicated member of the Center for Animal Litigation, which is a nonprofit organization committed to advocating for underserved animals. Her expertise and passion also shines through in her role as the host of a highly informative podcast where she shares valuable insights on animal law with a broad audience, and she's here to share more with us today. We are going to be talking about the benefits of insurance and implementing and marketing it for your practice. And I think this is so important because I think we covered last time, so much about the fact of, the legality around things, the access to service around things, things along those lines. But this is going to kind of dive a little bit more into those, the idea of insurance for veterinary practices. As a pet owner myself, I'm going to be totally honest. I have been both in and out of insurance, depending on, I'm like, yes, it's great. No, I don't know what to do with it. And I think part of that is not really understanding the real primary benefits to what it does and how it can really help, not just me as a pet owner, but a veterinary practice. So let's start with the first part of that is, what are the primary benefits of offering insurance to clients in a veterinary practice?
Sure. Yeah. And I just want to start by saying that I am not affiliated with any particular insurance company. This is just kind of like my own personal opinion. So I'm not advocating for one insurance company versus another or can recommend one versus another. I'm not being paid.
Even better. There you go. So there's our usually you have to do what this is a paid advertisement or an editorial based on the, we don't have to do any quick fine print or fast talk through it. So this is just a overview from somebody who's, has such amazing exposure to the industry and has seen it all. So even better for us. So yeah, take it away with that. If there's, the clients in a veterinary practice, the benefits for them when you're offering insurance.
Yeah. I mean, so this is just kind of like my theory that I think that, whether or not veterinarians themselves advocate for it in their practice, but I think that the more pet parents who have insurance, the more likely it is that these pet parents will be able to continue pursuing care that might be above and beyond, just the regular visits if they have insurance, right? Mm-hmm. And part of, because some of these more complicated procedures that happen, let's say you have a pet parent who's had insurance the entire life of the pet, and then all of a sudden the pet suddenly develops a more serious ailment. Pet parents without insurance sometimes are discouraged from pursuing some of the more, let's say, the pet needs an MRI or maybe like some sort of cancer treatment or like some sort of exploratory surgery, or maybe needs to see a specialist somewhere. And they're unlikely to pursue that because the cost can be very high, right? That's just the nature of doing business. And so having insurance for the pet parent enables them to make better decisions for their pet in the long term, and they're not like constrained by costs, obviously. And so also too, that enables the veterinarian to also offer a broader range of services to a lot more people. And thereby, hopefully in the long term, expanding your own practice and expanding your expertise and obviously treating more animals, which is what we all want to do.
Exactly. I think that's exactly it, right? And I think you touched on it there too about the impact of that client retention and satisfaction rate when you said, they're able to follow treatment plans that you've recommended more freely. They're able to, be able to get more out of your recommendations and the more of the technologies and things like that. And I guess you've seen, or I guess it's not just an assumption, right? That would be a direct correlation of what can happen around client retention and I guess that, pet parent and patient lifetime value that insurance can provide.
Yeah, I mean, totally. And, maybe it's just a coincidence and maybe it's just a part of, there's not, pet insurance isn't as prevalent, but I've never had a client who has insurance call me, like never. And so I don't know if that's because, like I said, there's just not a lot of people that have pet insurance, or if it's because those pet parents are able to take on that extra step of care. And so they're not sitting there saying, well, you didn't do this and you didn't do that and you could have done more, because they're able to take that extra step. So I didn't even think about that until now. But now that I've been thinking about it, yeah, I've never had somebody with pet insurance call me for a veterinary malpractice case.
That's an incredible observation. I think that on its own speaks to a huge benefit to both the pet owner and the practice owner to say, like, look, this is something that has maybe reverberating effects beyond what you would expect of just so I can do more treatments, or I can offer more for late in life, that stage of care and things like that. But really, it does prevent that idea of, well, you presented this, but you didn't really present, or you could have, but you chose not to because you knew I couldn't afford it. It was outside my budget. And now this is, assumptions are made. That's an amazing correlation. And I think you're going to be cognizant of that waiting now. Be like, hey, is it ever going to happen? But that's a really interesting thing there. So with that, I mean, maybe that's a great place to kind of go into some of the common misconceptions that we hear about pet insurance that practices should address. When they're communicating with their clients, why it's important, why they choose to offer it. Again, some of the misconceptions that you hear. What are some of those barriers that come up that you've maybe noticed before or seen before around pet insurance? Why it's not so widely adopted, like you just said? It's very less so compared to any other type of insurance.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I mean, I wish I had all the answers, but I mean, a lot of the reasons that I see and hear is because it's not terribly expensive. It is more expensive than renter's insurance, but renter's insurance isn't expensive at all. So, it's not terribly expensive, and it does cover a lot of the basic care that most people need. And it depends on the policy, but I know a lot of different insurance companies will cover pretty significant costs related to, non-routine care. Sometimes I will get calls from people who want to go after their insurance company because there's exclusions, just like in health insurance. Well, pet insurance is not regulated in the same way that human health insurance is regulated with respect to pre-existing conditions. They can still exclude pets based on pre-existing conditions. Anyway, so I think a lot of the reasons pet parents don't get it is because it's not widely advertised. And to the extent that it is very expensive to get pet insurance if you don't get your pet insurance at the same time that you get your brand new puppy, right? So for some people who adopt from shelters or older dogs or whatever, there might be policies that are more expensive because of those circumstances. And so it might not fit every consumer. But mostly I think it's just not very well talked about. It's not very well advertised because there is also, not only is there pet health insurance, pet medical insurance, but there is also pet life insurance. And very few people know about that. Yeah, no, I made the same face when I saw it. I was like, what do you mean?
I didn't. Yeah, I mean, I literally have a podcast and 3 animals, and I've had animals since I was literally born. And I'm like, what? Really? That's amazing. Okay. Yeah. Go on. Sorry. As I kind of, derail with that. I sometimes wear my emotion right on my face. You can very clearly see what I'm thinking. So yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I mean, it like pet life insurance also like even less talked about than the health insurance. And I also think it's very affordable. I want to say it's only a couple $100 maybe per year. I don't remember. There's not that many companies that offer it. And when I looked at it a while ago, I have like a very short TikTok social media video about it. But yeah, it covers, end of life treatment. Like it covers like, cremation and that sort of thing. Yeah. And it will pay out some monetary amount in the event that your pet dies, either of natural causes or unnatural causes. And so it's not anything, like human life insurance that you could potentially give to your beneficiaries. It's not anything you can retire on, but still it's better than nothing. Right. And to have something that covers cremation, getting the urn or whatever, final efforts you make for your pet and memoriam, it's nice to have, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's really interesting. Yeah, I was absolutely entirely unaware of that one as an option, and I can say that for sure. So, but let's kind of talk about then, okay, I think there's a lot of benefits to it, like you said. I think it's great for, it sounds like, client satisfaction and retention. You're going to have these long-term, patients that are coming back to you because they can afford to come back to you, right? It's not, you don't have obstructive costs. If you have something, and, I have 3 dogs. I've had one that tore an ACL. I had one that had massive hip dysplasia to the point where they recommended sending her to Colorado, as we talked about before we started recording, because I guess that's where they do this double hip replacement surgery. She was young, so they're like, oh, she's got so many years left to get this done, but it's like $30,000. And I was like, what? How do you get her? How does anybody do this, right? And
sure.
So I think there's just so much peace of mind for pet owners, and it really helps practice owners from that standpoint to get started into this from a veterinary practice standpoint, right? What steps should you take to really implement this effectively and make sure that people are, again, aware of why you're doing it and the reasons behind why they should do it and why they chose to do it, what it means for the practice and for the owner?
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of a tough question to answer because I think, like I said, a lot of these insurance companies want you to insure your puppy from as early as possible. And so I think veterinarians, they're often not seeing puppies right away because depending on where you got the puppy from, the shots and beginning level care is all done either by the breeder or by the pet store or the shelter or something. So you're not seeing them right at the beginning. So it might be hard to get that have that initial conversation right from the start. But I mean, yeah, I'm not really sure how to say, because it's obviously you don't want to be the one selling the insurance, but there certainly are plenty of opportunities out there with insurance companies for veterinarians to partner with them. And I think the savvy veterinarian business owner will start reaching out to some of these companies to see, is there some sort of mutually beneficial relationship that can be developed to make sure that your clients are being taken care of and you have a relationship with a reputable company, and that reputable company is also benefiting you by sending you clients or something like that.
Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously research is helpful.
Yeah. And I would imagine that's, exactly that, right? Is I know from the dental world, for instance, right? That's what it is your insurance company is a feeder into your system saying, hey, if you've got our insurance, this is who you go and see, right? So it kind of gives you a patient base. So it's natural, like you said, if you're doing that discovery to understand, is there this almost, quid pro quo almost, I guess, of sorts, where it's great, I'll do this if you do that, and that's sort of mutually beneficial, and this is how we do it. And I would also assume that there's target stages, it sounds like, from that standpoint, where, if I'm coming in with my 15-year-old senior dog, you're not going to be like, hey, have you heard about pet insurance? It's a little late right now, but like you said, it's, hey, yes, I've gotten my booster. Yes, I've gotten my first shots, maybe even my animals fixed or whatever it is when I take it from the shelter, humane society, like you said, breeder, whatever it is that it's coming from. But then I'm still looking for my first veterinarian, right? So that could be a great leader for that first appointment to always be like, hey, look, here's an option. Here's why you would start now. Here's the benefits of it. And like you said, the savvy practice owner is going to be able to kind of take that forward. Have you seen any ways of also like, is this something marketable? Like, do you think this would be a good differentiator? So for anybody on like their website, say like, hey, are you getting your first visit? Is it a new puppy, a new kitten, whatever it is? Thoughts on that idea?
I mean, I don't know. That's a really good question. That's a really, because I was kind of thinking as you were asking the question that I could see this being a differentiator for the mom and pop, like,
right.
Solo, not like the ones that are independently owned, right?
Yeah, not the equity backed, exactly. Yeah, like the chain style. Yeah.
I mean, I think that would be a really good differentiator to show that you care about your clients. And also, too, it's like, oh, hey, here's someone I trust that I built a relationship with. They've been in the community forever. And like, oh, now they're also thinking about my pet long term. Like, that's somebody I really want to have a relationship with. So, I mean, I think, whether you work for, you're part of a franchise or you're an independently owned, local veterinarian. I mean, I definitely think it does add an element of extra thought and care that I really do think pet parents would appreciate. And like I said, the correlation between pet parents and veterinary malpractice, from my experience, is very low. So, yeah.
That's incredible from that standpoint. Have you seen, or can you think of any, challenges in integrating these insurance services? Like how is it just a matter of, like you said, there's just so many offerings out there. You've got to do your research. You've got to kind of do some groundwork on this. Anything else that kind of comes to mind for, integrating these and bringing them into your practice?
I mean, I think like from a legal perspective, like I'm only aware of about 3 or 4 different major pet insurance companies. And I would have to Google them now because I can't even think of their names. Like, that's how little they advertise. But yeah, I think there's only 3 or 4 major ones. And I think that aside, so you don't have to do a ton of research, apparently. 3 or 4 phone calls isn't a lot.
Not bad, yeah.
Like from a legal perspective, obviously anytime you're offering some sort of third-party service, you want to make sure that you're protected and that you're careful and that you're not necessarily endorsing, oh, hey, I think this is a great insurance company to use. You should use them, right? Like, I think if you say, hey, here's a couple options. So maybe you develop a relationship with 2 different companies, and that, some sort of mutual benefit. If they allow it, there's going to be non-compete clauses, I'm sure. But it's such a new area that I think that there's just so much opportunity in the pet industry in general, right? And so I think, if you're the veterinarian who's breaking ground on this, I mean, you might be able to negotiate some really favorable terms for yourself with these insurance companies so that you can say, yeah, I want to offer 2, and you're just going to have to deal with it. And I'll make an agreement where I offer company A to client A and company B to client B, and then C, D, as we go along down the line. And so you're not necessarily, or you just tell the client to give, here's your choice. Here's some ones that I've done some research on. So, obviously you want to make sure you're protecting yourself at all times and you have, some sort of clause or agreement or like you're not signing any paperwork. Like I wouldn't have them filling out any paperwork in your office or associated with your office. I would definitely make sure that you're just like, here's some brands that I recommend, take them home and make your choice.
Yeah.
I think that's probably the best way to go about
it. I've seen that kind of strategy before where they say, hey, here's who we work with most often, but there are other options out there. So feel free to do your research and see who works best for you. And then that way, again, you're not backing yourself into a corner of you have to use them or this is all we accept or whatever it is from that perspective, right? So that makes sense. For those who didn't listen to our first episode together, I think this is a really important, now that you've drawn that correlation around the malpractice side of things. And what have you seen in terms of malpractice? Like you said, when people say you didn't go far enough to offer, where insurance can cover that. Can we dig a little deeper into that side of it? Because I'd love to kind of synopsis, Cole's notes that one and bring it into this one, because I think it just, again, now that we've drawn that correlation, I think it's so important to say, like, look, offering that full range of care, all of the options, everything prevents your exposure to that. So I'd love to get your take on that as well.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's a really great question. I would say, and if I'm not answering the question you asked, let me know, because sometimes I'm a little left of center. But what I see most often in veterinary malpractice cases is lack of communication, or where the client feels there was a lack of communication or there was a miscommunication. And also, too, that sort of, you didn't do everything you could, right? And what I'll see in the notes from the veterinarian is, oh, well, services X, Y, and Z were offered. And sometimes the veterinarians will actually put it in there that, like, owner had cost concerns, right? But what the owner will tell me is, oh no, I didn't say I had cost concerns. They never offered this to me. Or they told me, or like after the fact, I had a phone call with them and they said, oh, well, I didn't think you could afford it. So, it's he said, she said. I never really know what was actually said in those phone calls. Obviously, I'm representing the client, the owner, so I've got to go with their version of events. But yeah, I mean, in situations, especially where it's a focus on you didn't do as much as you could. I mean, I would say that having the option, having a pet parent with insurance, that they're not going to have that conversation because everybody knows it's covered, or at least mostly covered.
Yeah.
You really are protecting yourself more when you're working with a client who has pet insurance.
I think that's just a perfect, that is maybe like the hidden, almost at this point, we've unearthed the veterinary practice owner side of insurance. Besides I get more clients, they're going to be happier, they're going to be likely to, follow treatment plans, but you really kind of cover all of your bases in terms of, you're making sure that you're safe all the way around and you feel free and comfortable offering everything because of exactly that. So I think that, I love that we connected those dots, like almost live here, but like it was great. Like this is, an epiphany that I think that could be a big piece of this. So as we kind of wrap up here, I'd love to kind of get your practical advice for anybody, again, whether it's a pet owner or a veterinary practice, around, adding insurance options for them, and kind of that first toe in the water to this of what it could mean for them, and any takeaways from that side of things.
Geez, I mean, I don't know that I can really add to anything that we've already discussed. I mean, I really just think that from a public policy, big picture sort of view, and nobody is a fan of insurance companies most of the time, right? But I think it's a really long term. It is a win for everybody because, just looking at, medical insurance for humans, or car insurance, or homeowners insurance, it's like everybody does better overall, big picture wise, when insurance is in place, right? Yep. People who get injured get coverage. People who lose their homes, they get things replaced. And health insurance too, right? We just in general have a healthier population because people have access to care that they otherwise wouldn't have been able to afford. And, insurance companies are making money, doctors are making money, car mechanics are making money. Everybody is making money when everybody's covered by insurance. And even though it's a headache sometimes, like, I think the big picture is just everybody's making money. So business wise, it makes sense, but everybody is also happier and healthier when they know that they have that net to catch them if they need it.
Absolutely. As somebody very close to me in my life says all the time, because he works in the industry and is for many, many years, everybody hates me until they need me, right? And that's what he always says, right? Everyone always hates insurance until you need it. Then you're like, oh yeah, right. This is that safety net that allows me the care, the everything I'm looking for, that I can sleep better at night with. What if this happens? Well, you don't need to worry as much about the what ifs and things like that, right? So I absolutely love that. I think that's a great kind of final takeaway from that. But Kristina, before we go, for our listeners, and again, you gave it to us last time, but let's do it again this time. For them to get in contact with you, to learn more about you, to hear your podcast, all of that, give us all the rundown, the details of all the great things you're doing so that we can stay in touch and stay informed with you.
Yeah, thanks. So obviously theanimallawfirm.com is our website. We're on all the socials, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram. We have a podcast that's called Fighting for the Underdog. We also have merchandise, which is specifically related to the podcast. So if anyone buys a t-shirt or a water bottle, the proceeds from those purchases go to support the nonprofit organizations we interview on our podcast. Yeah, you can find us pretty much anywhere.
That's amazing. That is wonderful. And we got to find you here twice now. So even better. That's great. So you're doing it all. So thank you so much, Kristina, for joining us today, talking about the benefits of insurance and implementing and marketing it for your practice. We appreciate it very much. We're going to have to go for I'm a Canadian, so I'm going to say we're going to have to go for the hat trick next and make sure we get the third one across the line as well. So I hope we'll be talking with you again soon. Thank you so much. Always a pleasure, Kristina.
Yeah, I would love to. Thank you so much.
Amazing. I also want to take a moment to thank our listeners. As always, we appreciate each and every one of you, and we can't do what we do without you. So if you like our podcast, kindly share it with your colleagues, friends on social media. And please don't forget to leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. It's your kind words and reviews that are going to help other practice owners and doctors and veterinarians in training find us and appreciate all the great information we have and bring you amazing guests like Kristina here. So thank you. And until next time, keep striving for excellence, making a positive impact in the lives of your patients and pet parents. And I'm wishing you all an amazing week ahead. Thanks, everybody, and take care.